It is hard for players to shut out the noise, as he was saying. Did James Maddison show the best way to respond to it?
That's all you can do. You know, do the business on the pitch, but not just today, for a run of games now. And I think sometimes the hardest thing to do as a player is look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, I've not perhaps done the business. I haven't been as good as what I should be. And I think he's alluding to what's been said about him this week. And sometimes you've got to take that if you don't like it. That's the best way to react. Come out, do the business on the pitch, do your talking on the pitch. It's not been a good enough season for Tottenham. Yes, they've had injuries, but to be in the position they are, other teams have had injuries and struggled, but still found ways of winning. But it was a big 3 points from today, and that performance was one that I wasn't surprised by. It was never going to be beautiful. It was never going to be one of those sort of performances where everyone's like doing olays and it's lovely to watch. It wasn't a joyful game. It was a tough watch at times. But the important thing is it's just building performances like that, getting 3 points and taking the pressure off, because you've still got a big cup to look forward to. There's not many great sides left in that one, and you can still have a European Cup at the end of it. So that's what their objective has to be right now, and keep producing better performances.
They did what they had to do, Spurs, but how would you describe the way they went about it, Jermain?
Just professional, to be honest. You know, just getting the job done. Of course, you want to play good football. I mean, since Ange's been in, we saw, especially in the first 2 months when he come in, you know, it was free-flowing, different to Conte. Everyone enjoyed it. You know, Spurs is back. But I think now, when you've had bad results, and it's been a long time, I think it's just a case of just being professional, being disciplined at times, sticking together and just winning. You know, then it just becomes like the result's important, and performance ain't as that important as the result.
What do you make of the goal itself from James Maddison? Was he the most alert player in the box?
Yeah, and that's it really. He's the one that reacted the quickest. He just got himself in an area where, I mean, there's a lot of bodies in the area, and I think Son here was just trying to sort of like just get it in the area. But even, I mean, Onana maybe could have pushed it a little bit wider. That's probably a negative on their part, but like, yeah, he just got himself in an area where he can sort of like try and sniff something out. I like saying, you know, getting attracted to the goalkeeper. No one's really seen him. He just reacted, and I bet he can't believe his luck when he
just glances over towards the assistant, doesn't he, just
course,
to make sure?
Yeah, because you don't know, and in that moment it happens so quick. But even when he taps it in, you just, I suppose you straight away you probably think, because you've got so much time, you think I must be offside. But like I said, he was the first one to react.
He reacts and gambles, he's alive. That's what exactly. That was what Jermain did. He just always followed that.
There he is with the half lobster, followed by the darts throw.
Yeah. Well, let you be delighted. You just want to score goals. You want to be playing. That's what you need to do. Just keep doing this talking on the pitch. Play well, and people won't be questioning your ability or everything you do. And it's important he does that now to the end of the season, because there's no doubt he has qualities. We all know that.
Yep. You also talked about the importance of having players who, yes, he's not been out for a huge amount of time, but he's been out for a couple of weeks. Can that actually help Tottenham, that he's coming back in? And yes, he's been recovering from injury, but he's maybe a bit fresher than the ones who are playing midweek weekend.
You just need bodies. You need, especially substitute. We looked at the two managers today. Amarin's looking behind thinking, I've got 17, 18-year-olds here to bring on, or a centre-back in Lindelof. You look at Ange's his bench is pretty stacked, if you like. You've got good midfield players there. You've got Odegaard that can come on and do something. Defensively, you're OK. It makes a big difference. And all of a sudden, that squad looks a bit thicker. You can get players back, a little bit of confidence. Vicario was a gamble today, but he brought him back in and he performed really well, made one brilliant save from Garnacho, and that's exactly what they needed today. So it is going to take time for them to get that performance and that confidence and free-flowing football that we spoke about maybe last season when Ange first come. Because when you're under pressure, it's difficult. You know, the crowd, the anxiety. But the most important thing was, Kelly, they got that 3 points. It wasn't vintage by any stretch, but it was a good win for them.
When Jamie mentioned there the chance for Garnacho, there were a couple of opportunities for Manchester United in this game. So we have to factor in, when we're judging Tottenham's performance, that the Manchester United were wasteful, Jermain.
Yeah, this is a big chance. You have to make the goalkeeper work. You have to hit the target from there, because he has time, to be honest. I know it bobbles up a little bit, but you have to slow your feet down, be calm and hit the target. You know, that was a big chance in the game, James.
Yeah, I mean, this one... Look, you talk about this is your domain, Jay. What does he do wrong
But
here?
even this one, to be honest, it's not an easy chance, of course, because I think Porro comes across and he's stretching a little bit. It's not an easy chance, but at the same time, you want to think that you have to try and go across the goalkeeper there. This one's, I think...
This is a bit unlucky, this one. He hits this well.
Yeah, it's a good stop, good save. But there's nothing else he can do, really. Just try and hit the target, gets good power.
Good save.
I won't say it was a great chance, but he made it.
You said there were moments from Zirkzee, this may be not one of them, Jamie.
I want because Jermain said something really interesting. What does he get wrong here, Jermain?
I spoke about like foot patterns, if that makes sense, because I just felt like he was a little bit flat-footed there. You can see his movement. There's not much movement now, because I always think once the ball goes wide, if you can just sort of like come away from the ball and then attack it. I think just those slight movements, if you do that, then I think you've got a better chance, because it's sort of like caught underneath it and he's sort of like stretching there where it's too flat-footed.
What you mean? I don't know if we can see that again.
Yeah. So I'm talking
about. Do you mean
like
making shorter steps?
Shorter steps.
Because they're 3 long steps that he makes.
So if the ball goes wide, if he comes away from it a little bit, 2 yards, comes away from it a little bit, then you go forward and attack it. But it's sort of like just on his heels a little bit.
So he's running onto the ball.
Yeah, just those. It's small details. It's little things really.
Is that maybe just a little bit
Too
of lack
static.
of confidence? Is that belief?
So I always think when the ball goes wide for centre forwards, you should always have 2 movements, even if it's subtle movements. Haaland does it well. It would sort of like, it goes back and then he'll attack it. You know, it doesn't have to be big movements, but those subtle movements, your foot patterns are so important and it could have made a difference.
In terms of players coming back for Tottenham, James Maddison obviously back, and a big one was Vicario, who we'd already touched on here. But Ange Postecoglou said it before the game. It's not just about the fact that he's their number 1 goalkeeper. It's about the fact that he's experienced, and it's about the calmness that he can maybe bring to that defence that's looked quite fragile. And it's successive clean sheets for the first time in 60 months.
Yeah, is it Kinski, the keeper, the young one, who when he first came in, he got thrust into a really difficult situation in the cup. I think it was against Liverpool in the first leg, and he did ever so well. And then he had a couple of difficult...
That was a clean sheet, but not in the Premier League.
He did quite well in that game, and you just felt that... But it's a lack of experience, especially for goalkeepers. And when you've got someone there that's assured, he made good saves. As I said before, he wasn't in the best of form before he got injured, but he's still an established player, and he gives you that little bit of belief. It just helps with the manager, because when you're trying to get your message across, if you see a lot of young players, sometimes they need older heads around them, good people. You know, he spoke about what a good person he is in the dressing room. I saw him talking to, I think, Bergvall at the end of the game, explaining a couple of things to him. And you do need good senior players. So to get him back, I think, is important. He played some really good saves. And I felt they weren't, because there's been times when you watch Tottenham and they take risks. He played one ball into Bentancur at one point with Bentancur did. It was a straight pass, which I'm not a big fan of. He took it so well. But apart from that, I didn't think they were... Sometimes your Tottenham play such high-risk football, but I didn't feel that they did that as much today. And to be honest, I think that's almost the way to go, just for a while, because you've got to build yourself back into confidence. You can't just keep playing the same way and playing almost Russian roulette, because sooner or later you're going to get shot, and that's not the way to play. But I felt that there was a bit more calmness, and like you said about Jed Spence, who I agree with, Jermain, I thought he was man of the match. Gary Neville was right. I just thought it was a good decision to not at times just go run into areas. Pedro Porro does it too often for me. Yeah. But I felt Jed was just had that calmness and class about him today, Jermain.
I just thought he just picked his moments. I think as fullback, you've got to pick your moments. If you've got comfortable possession, obviously that comes with experience, then you know when to go forward. But I just felt like he picked his moments. He knew when to go forward, and, you know, even here, just, you know, getting the team up the pitch, and even when he got into the final third, he picks the right pass. You know, he's clever, you know, he's disciplined, strong.
This was good. I like this bit of play.
Really good. So everything he did well. Everything he did, you know, it was a really, really good game.
And he's found this, because it was never... When he first arrived, I think it was Antonio Conte was the manager. And I heard that, Antonio Conte didn't really necessarily want him, and he made that pretty clear. And then there was also a case where was Jed maybe trained as well as what he could? How was his attitude in and around the place? Now I look at a young player with tremendous talent, speed, agility. He can defend, very cool on the ball, got a good football brain. He is doing so well. But it just shows you need a bit of confidence, a bit of belief, you know. And sometimes when we talk about injuries, if there aren't these injuries to a doggy or whoever, we don't probably see him in the Tottenham side. But he's forced his way in there. He's been taking his chance really well. And I thought today, I think we all agree, I thought he was excellent.
And it's not easy for fullbacks, especially the way Tottenham want to play with the fullbacks playing so high, and it's quite congested, and sometimes you've got your back to goal and you've got to pick the right pass at the right moment. But I thought that he was brilliant today.
Well, Gary Neville has joined us in the studio. He's been very defensive in terms of the questions that he's been asked about his style, because they've been losing games. But they've won today, and now Ange Postecoglou gets to go on the front foot. What did you make of their performance?
Yeah, I mean, I think every manager, when they're in this situation, and I've been there myself, always think that the criticism is personal and it's harsh and it goes too far, and then they think that ultimately a little bit of paranoia kicks in. I think at times as a manager, it's a lonely place. And I think that's what's obviously happening with Ange. Even as experienced as he is, he has been under pressure in this last 3 months, going out of 2 cup competitions, losing all the games in the league, losing all the players through injury, bringing them back and then getting re-injured. So there's been a lot of things going on here. Obviously then the protests against the owners then sort of being under pressure. Do they sack the manager? Did they not sack the manager? And he's right in the middle of it. And he's the only guy who has to go out every single week and do 6 press conferences. 3 games a week they've been playing now for 2 or 3 months. He has to go out before and after every single game. So he's fronting the whole club. The guy's there in the director's box, and I do own a football club, so I suppose in some ways, poacher term gamekeeper here for a minute. It's the manager who goes out there and faces the cameras every single week. So I've got a little bit of sympathy for him, but also when you lose games at Tottenham like they have, then you're going to get put under pressure. So it's a good night for him tonight, but I don't buy into this that everyone wants Ange Postecoglou to be sacked or to be...
or to fail.
To fail, because actually I desperately don't. I think that he's one of the best styles of play I've seen here for a long time. It's brilliant how he's got his team to play. They're so exciting to watch. I absolutely love it when I get a Tottenham game given to me sort of at the end of each month, and you get your games the following month. So I think everybody wants him to succeed, but obviously results do have to improve.
And they improved today with that 1-0 win against Manchester United too. We will get to. But it looks as though things may, and I say this quite cautiously, be starting to improve for Tottenham. You look at the current injury list now. Timo Werner's coming back next week. Christian Romero, Dominic Solanke, Mickey van der Ben, maybe by early March. Richarlison a little later. And then Dragusin, obviously, with the ACL, is going to be a lot longer than that. So there are players starting to come back to fitness. And he said that one of the factors might well be the way that they play. But he also pointed to the players who've been able to play for a lot longer than they have done at previous stages in their career. But the number of sprints per game is the highest for Tottenham of any team in the Premier League. Bournemouth have also had a lot of injuries, and they're second on that list. So it may not be the reason, but is it a reason, Gary?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It's a demanding, physically demanding style of play that Tottenham have. And you see, I think Arsenal and Manchester City were near the bottom. And I always remember when we played, quite often our manager would say to us, you cannot press all game. You have to make sure that you take blocks of periods of game where you're 20 minutes and you might have to sit behind the ball or sit in a sort of mid-block position as it's termed now, or even in a low block. We'd sometimes sit 5-10 yards outside of our own box and counter-attack. I think you said that before the game today. Tottenham are always on the front foot and it's extremely demanding to do that. So you are asking, you are asking for more from the best, particularly when you're playing 3 games a week.
So he's looking at ways internally that they can try and mitigate that. What kind of things would he be looking at, Jamie? How does he need to handle some of those players who may be more susceptible to, for example, hamstring injuries?
I had a lot of injuries when I played, unfortunately, so I understand that part of the game. But the only thing I will say is, with some of them, it's difficult to say. Sometimes it happens, you can roll an ankle or you can have an injury with your knee. When you have a player, say, like Mickey van der Ven, who's a flying machine, that is susceptible to hamstring injuries, a little bit like Michael Owen was, where I played with Michael, that every time he's got a little bit nervy once he picked up one, I think the game he actually picked his first one up, I remember, I think he played left back, which is not going to be beneficial to somebody like that because you're making a lot more runs. Then when he came back this season, when he did it, I just felt it was a risk. And I got the manager's reasoning for doing it because you're under pressure. He's your best player. Can I get him back on the pitch? Most players want to play, so he's probably saying, yeah, Gaffer, I'll be all right, get me on the pitch. But if I was the player now and I was his agent and people looking up, I'd be fuming because it's now become not just 1, 2, 3 times you do a hamstring injury. You've had an operation. Once you sew that back on, are you that quick anymore? We don't quite know. And are you susceptible to it happening again? So they are things that I think the manager has to be accountable for. And that's a problem. But I will also say, what Gary says, that when you're getting, criticised as a manager, sometimes you just have to take it. It's not personal, and when you're in that position in the league, when you're going out without a fight against Liverpool and you're producing those kinds of performances and you're losing in a lot of games and the performances have been so poor, that's the price on the ticket when you're managing a big club. So you have to take it.
Just on that, when Van der Ven and Romero came back, I think it was against Chelsea. Here, and we did the game, and we all thought it was a massive risk. Yeah. But just understand the dynamic of a football club. Sometimes it happens at the end of a season, a final, where a manager might overrule sports science and medical doctors and say, look, we have to play him because it's a final and we've got nowhere else to go. I mean, a lot's made of sports science nowadays and the experts within these departments and the medical departments. I've never, ever seen a manager go against a doctor or medical advice with they say, look, they're not quite ready yet, Ange, don't play them today. I suspect they must have been told. Well, if he has gone against medical and doctor advice, it would be quite unusual, I think, in a football. Managers don't tend to go against medical advice and doctor's advice.
I'm not just because obviously we're not privy to conversations, but when you're under pressure as a manager and you're putting a little bit of heat on the
department, you need strong doctors who says, "I'm sorry, you can play them at your risk."
How many are when you're
managers do put pressure? Because I remember when AVB
it.
was here. I remember when the players got injured and literally he was sitting on the scans. Because when you need results, like that's the first thing. The managers
What do you
put
mean
pressure.
sitting on the scans?
If you're doing like an ultrasound, when AVB was at Tottenham,
the manager was watching over.
The manager was sitting. And,
what was he looking for?
Doctor
But if you haven't got the training, what are you looking for?
He thought you were having him over, didn't you? He thought
not me. But literally, he was sitting, and that's how much pressure these managers put on.
Honestly, I swear, I think if a manager sits over you on a scan, I think you tell him to get out of here. The manager should not be in a medical room watching over a player.
You would have said that to Fergie, would you?
Just something. He never would have come in the change room.
Yeah,
and he
you
never
would say that to Fergie.
No. He never would have come in the change room, and he never would have gone in the medical room ever. Never. He never came in our change room once in the training ground, hardly. That was our space, and certainly would never put pressure on the medical team. Yeah. As much as he was controlling, he never did that. I mean, it's ridiculous.
But there's some managers even like would say to like doctors and physios.
Let's go back to Ange.
I don't think he would.
Would Ange actually go against doctors and medical advice?
We can't say.
No, I don't think he would. I think I don't think he would.
Yeah. I think when the pressure's on, you just don't know. When
you're
under it as a manager and you need something, you're key
players.
Need him. What do you think? Is he going to be right? Can you get him on the pitch for me?
This is the vicious circle, isn't it, Jermain? Where you have a series of poor results, you have a series of injuries, you're trying to get your senior players back, and that's where you will, maybe if there's a possibility that a player can come back, rather than ignoring advice completely, you might take a medical risk.
They measure everything within an inch of their lives nowadays, this lot. You know what I mean? They're literally measuring everything all the time.
But players know.
But they should know when to bring a player back and when not to bring a player back. Those two coming back for that Chelsea game, we were all sat there in the media lounge thinking, oh, that wasn't expected. What's happening here?
It depends on the injury, though, and how long you're out for, because now it's all graded. Hamstrings are graded, so players know now. Like, if you go for a scan, they say the grade 1 hamstring, 10 days, or grade 2, so players know.
So how accurate
but what you can't
is it?
account
Because you've
for,
played most
though,
recently. How accurate is it when if you were to get, for example, a hamstring strain and you were to get that kind of injury, how detailed is the information that you would get on your return? Yeah,
but it's detailed. But I also think that you should treat the player, not the scan, because if the scan said you've got a grade 1, for instance, you're out for 2 weeks, you might feel okay in a week. So then it's that conversation that you have with the physios. But like you said, Gaz, you just don't know. Some managers, when you're under pressure, will be in there every day. Like, how long can he play? But
the problem is, you're exactly right. But what you can't account for is 70 minutes of I think he did it 70-odd minutes in that game where he's fatigued. That's when the hamstring will come under more pressure. You know, I tore mine a couple of times. It's a nightmare because you think you're okay, you want to play, and all of a sudden it goes again on you. Nothing you can do. So that's something that no matter what you say about the medical department, maybe they say, look, play for an hour, but he's on there for an hour. You're winning. You're hanging on. You need a result. I think in that game against Chelsea, obviously they were winning at 2-0. I think at one point, and he thought, I need him on the pitch for longer. And you're not going to listen. The doctor turns around and says, you've got to take him off now. No, and you're under a bit of pressure, you're going, I don't really want to, I need him on the pitch. It becomes very difficult and almost counterintuitive to a certain extent. I do get what the boys are saying, that the doctor should really have the final say, but when you're a manager under pressure, it becomes very difficult.
I could understand if it was a forward player or a midfield player saying, you can do an hour, but as a centre-back, you need your centre-backs to play the whole game, I think. Defenders, I don't think you can say, he'll do an hour for you. I think a forward can do an hour, a winger can do an hour. I think with goalkeepers and defenders, you need them to be able to stay on the whole match, and if they can't stay on the whole match, you're better off not playing them at all.
You mentioned the protest that happened before the game and after the game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against the owners. There has been criticism. It's particularly been levelled at Daniel Levy, who is the face of the ownership at the club. He's the chairman. He's the longest-serving chairman by quite some way in the Premier League. And Spurs fans are unhappy that while there is financial success at the club, that isn't translating into success on the pitch. Do they have a point?
Well, yeah, of course they've got a point. And I think that the rumours are that Tottenham are looking behind the scenes. It's not a public sale, like when Manchester United went out there and said, we're having a strategic review of our options and we're looking to bring investment in. They've not said that. But the rumour mill around is that Tottenham are looking potentially for people to come and buy this club. Now, it'll be a big price, but it would be the right time probably in some ways, because I think what he's done here in building this stadium, getting the training ground right, the problem with him is he's not been able to leave the football side or detach the football side from himself so that ultimately he just runs the business side, because he's obviously very good at that. He runs a pretty tight ship, and that's what you want at a football club. It's easy at a football club to get people who say yes, who get emotional about spending money. He's got to look after Tottenham and their long-term future, but he's also got to bring in an experts in the football department, and he always seems to obviously interfere in that and sort of be oppressive in the way in which he deals with that side of it. And that's a big problem, because a football club is a football club, and it's all about first-team performance. So the stadium's great. The training ground's great. That's what he can do. He can bring commercial revenue, make sure the NFL here, make sure Beyonce's here, as Jamie said before the game. And
she's here, there's someone looking forward to it.
There's loads of money coming into
You're
the
not
club.
getting a ticket.
Yeah, he's protected the long-term. He's protected the long-term future of the club from a point of view of revenue and things like that, which are really important. But they can't let go. It's a little bit like United when sort of David Gill and Sir Alex Ferguson left. The guys who were running the commercial side, who were doing a great job, come into the football side and think they can play football manager, and they can't. It's a completely different skill set.
The two sides of the argument are that financially, Spurs are doing incredibly well. They've got this stunning stadium, the training facilities have been improved. They would argue that they are also spending on bringing in players. And yet the fans' point of view is, well, why are we not seeing that on the pitch? If you're making this much money for the club and for your organisation, then why are we not seeing this reflected on the pitch?
I think it's the decision making as well. I think that on that banner there, would it say 16 managers in 24 years, something like that? There's been too much change in terms of that perspective, and every manager, Gary made a really good point. When the managers leave, Conte's second in his league, Nuno Espirito Santo third in the Premier League after really getting outed and certainly sent embarrassed while he was here. Conte's top of the Italian league. That in itself tells you everything. It can't keep being the manager's fault. So look, I've said the same things now, Kelly, about Daniel leaving Tottenham for the last, 15 years or so. I've always felt the same things. There are aspects of it that he has. Of course, he's done a great job. Look at this stadium, etc. But Gary's right. I think sometimes you've got to leave the football decisions to people that understand those decisions, and making sure that when you're bringing players in, they're going to make your team better, because I think that's where they've gone a little bit wrong and they've fallen behind. Because what happens with Daniel as well, as soon as he comes under pressure, which he is now, the first thing he wants to do is say, fire the manager, because then that takes the pressure off him again. That can't keep having that firing culture, because it's just not going to bring you success.
Which they haven't got at the moment, because before today's game, Spurs were in 15th. They have been on a really poor run of form, and they've stuck with.
And I think we've got a cup final. I think after last time when he sacked whatever we think about Jose, the greatest cup winner of all time was sacked before a final. That was absolutely crazy when you think about it, and they put in Ryan Mason in charge. I think this time they probably think, look, they can ram it all down our throats, and I include the chairman, the manager, all the criticism. Jamie Carragher said a few weeks ago, I was there, he said, Tottenham, they don't win a game. They don't win anything. When do they ever win a big game? Why can't they use that as their fuel to all of us and go and win something this year? And then all of a sudden, everyone will just go, oh, fair enough, what a great job.
As Jamie said, and I think you were about to allude to there, Gary, is that the fact that the managers who've gone previously have been much higher in the table than Ange Postecoglou is at this stage, whereas Postecoglou, before today's game, I think only Juan de Ramos had a lower points total over his previous 12 games. So it was a very poor run of form, with the mitigating circumstances that we've all discussed, but that Tottenham have pulled the trigger more quickly in previous seasons.
They have a model here which actually, to be fair, most football clubs in the country should be run by, and I include my own in that, in terms of I saw a graphic before that we had, I don't know if we can show it, that said that Tottenham's wage bill to their revenue was 42%. And all the other clubs in, I think...
We don't need to see it, you've just mentioned it. It's 42% of their revenue.
I know, but it's important to see it against the rest of the league in terms of the importance to see it against the rest of the league. So I think this is a really important graphic and table. So Daniel Levy will be sat in his boardroom saying, I run my football club properly because my wages are in line with what my revenue is, which is how a business should be successfully run. The problem is with football, we've got this... model which is essentially broken. The Championship's bust. The rest of League One and League Two are struggling. Owners have to pump money in every single year to do it. And he's trying to run his football club like a proper business. However, the rest of football are spending 50, 60, 70, 80% of their revenues on wages, which means that they invest more at times. Now, they have invested a lot here, but he is actually running the business very well. And I said probably 7 or 8 years ago, he's the best operator of a football club in the game in terms of the business side of it, and he is. And that 42% there demonstrates that, because it means it's keeping his club sustainable. However, the problem he's got is that he's not able to create a successful football project, and that's all the fans care about. And he handles that side badly. So he's never been able to detach the business side from the football side and connect them together in a way which other people can solve. He should step away from the football side.
So what does that mean then? Because he clearly is sanctioning the spend on players, and Tottenham have spent money. They're the third top net spenders since 2019.
Yeah.
So are you talking about who they're spending the money on?
You talk about recruitment, because I'm sure if you spoke to the chairman, he'll be like, well, I mentioned before about best in class. You mentioned the training ground's unbelievable. You know, the academy coaches, you've got top academy coaches, you've got the stadium. You see the net spend here. So he'd probably be thinking, well, I've given you everything. You know, I've tried to get the top managers, Mourinho's, the Conte's, winners, to try and get over the line. Under Poch, came close, you know, Champions League final. So I can imagine, I mean, he would be hurt today, seeing that. You know, the chairman, he comes here with his family, his wife, and his dad comes to the game sometimes. I can imagine, of course, I know at that level you have to be thick-skinned, but he's human at the end of the day. He'll be hurt by that, because he's probably looking at it thinking, I've given so much. Of course the fans want to see more. You know, this is a big football club. You know, last time I won a trophy was 2008. I mean, it's a long time, but at the same time, I do believe if you spoke to him, he'll be hurt because of what he's actually put into the club, you know.
What he hasn't got right, obviously, it's obvious to say this because there's evidence there now over 10, 15 years, is he's not built the right culture and winning mentality throughout the football club. So he can obviously run a business. He's obviously extremely talented and intelligent.
So there's the winning mentality on that side of things. But what does that mean?
I think
a winning mentality on the football side.
Jamie knows a lot more than I do about what it's like to work with Daniel Levy, but I can only hear of what it's like to deal with him in terms of transfers, where people talk about, and it's quite challenging to deal with him. And if you're creating a culture and maybe it's a little bit oppressive, a little bit sort of suffocating for managers and making it a little bit difficult for them, he's thrown money. The Glazers have been saying, we've thrown loads of money at it. Where's the trophies? It's not just about throwing money at something and expecting there to be trophies.
That comes back to Jermain's question. Well, is it recruitment then?
Well, no, you've got to create an environment for success, which means employing the right people, putting the right people in the jobs on the football side. He sacked a lot of sporting directors, by the way, as well.
Gary. He has too much control.
He's got that control mentality that's quite oppressive and suffocating for people underneath him, where they don't feel like they can thrive. Then that is your problem. So, yeah, we can say that he's a great businessman from a point of view of what he's achieved on the sustainability side, the stadium, the training ground, but he's not achieved it through a mentality. He's not developed a winning mentality in this business and in this football club, which is really important. So from that side, he's failed. And when you take first-team performance away from the heart of a football club, you basically need to leave a football club. It's the most important thing, first-team performance. And he doesn't, I think he just thinks putting money at it. He'll point towards that graphic and say, look what I've done. But the reality of it is he's got to create an environment for success. And Tottenham haven't had that under him.
Does that come from the players as well? So obviously you played the Man United team that dominated.
Yeah, I think it's maybe the slight problem as well, Jermain, is when I look at the players that they buy, good players, but a lot of them they're hoping they're going to be stars.
Yeah.
There's a lot of players that have become stars. I look at Kulusevski and Bentancur, two players that they bought in for relatively cheap money, you know, and they've become worth a lot more than what they are now. If you look at Solanke, they paid 65, but you're not guaranteed is he going to be a star? You don't know. Whenever they're in for a really big name player, do I think that Tottenham are going to be the team that are going to get him? Are they going to go all out and maybe spend the big wages to get the names in here? And that's what I think is a turning point.
Just want to let everybody know that announcement was that the bars are closing in 30 minutes. So if you want to carry this conversation on in the bar, you've got 30 minutes in which to do it. But we'll probably still be on here.
At other clubs, City, United, probably, you always felt you could get a player off Tottenham.
Yeah.
Whereas actually he's never created a position whereby, I think at this club now with this stadium and the revenues that they have, whereby when you're at Tottenham you feel like, no, you need to stay. Where Manchester City over the last 10, 12 years in the Abu Dhabi ownership, they've created a culture whereby players want to stay because they're winning. Now, that needs to be created here because Tottenham's a bigger club than Manchester City, let's be really clear. That's not controversial, by the way. When Manchester City were taking over...
Well, you say that.
I'd say it's quite controversial.
Right,
when Manchester City were taken over by Abu Dhabi 15 years ago, Tottenham were a far bigger football club.
Yeah.
So the idea that Tottenham historically have not been a bigger football club than Manchester City, absolutely they are. Now, City now, where they currently are are right at the top of the game because they've invested in an amazing football project. They've done it brilliantly on and off the pitch. Daniel Levy's done it brilliantly off the pitch. He's not done it brilliantly on the pitch, and that's why he's behind Manchester City. But Tottenham as a historic football club is bigger than Manchester City. That's not a criticism of City. City have done incredibly well. They're an amazing football club now in terms of their wins and everything like that. But Tottenham historically are a bigger club, let's be clear.
Well, Harry Kane was a great example last year when he was the stadium. You thought, well, he could stay here, win things. He needed to leave because he knows the culture here. He's not going to win anything while he's here. And that tells you everything. He's one of their own. But Daniel felt probably, you know what, we'll get the right money for him. It's maybe good business.
But Bale left, Modric left.
Berbatov every time.
Left, Carrick left. A lot of players have left.
But Harry was the one I felt this last few years. And I look at, I love Son, what he's done over the last few years. It's been incredible for this club. But even he looks a little bit frustrated right now because he thinks, am I going to win anything? But as I said, he might do. And that is a great opportunity because that's the beauty of football. They have one opportunity now. I mean, I still think they're going to have a decent end to the season. But if they win something, they can ram it down all of our throats.
No, but we'd love to see it, though.
Something, they could win the Europa League.
Yeah, we'd love to see it. I mean, Gus spoke before about Tottenham, love watching Tottenham play and what Adj's brought and, how they play. I mean, we would love to see it.
If United don't win the Europa League because they're still in it, I would love Tottenham to win the Europa League.
OK. Could be a final. Could be Manchester United against Tottenham Hotspur in the final of the Europa League. But today, it was Tottenham who were on top in the Premier League. And they will need to change things. But when we've talked about Tottenham, we've reflected on the injuries that they've had. With Manchester United, there were injuries and illness within the squad. In the build-up to this game, as he said, it was a very disrupted preparation because of that. It was changing almost on a daily basis. Is that enough to explain the performance and the result today, do you think?
Well, there's no doubt that losing Ahmad meant that they lost all the balance on that right-hand side of the pitch. And we saw what happened against Newcastle when Xerxes played in one of those he played in the left pocket that day and he had to go out to that side to defend. The problem was today it meant that Bruno Fernandes was asked to put in, I mean, not that a player should be worried about putting in a big shift. They all have to put in a big shift, but when your best player's having to basically sort of trek out 50 yards to Jed Spence and then trek back in and leave Casemiro on his own. I didn't.
And then when he gets the ball, he's tired.
He's knackered. I didn't think that was right. I just didn't think that was right. I mean, look, I'm sure that he's got problems because he's got no players to call upon who can play on that side. But for me, your best player should be reserved for winning you the game, and I didn't think it helped that at all in the first half. And it allowed Tottenham an easy out all the time. So for me, that was an issue. But look, he's right in what he says. I mean, United had 2 or 3 big chances and didn't take it. The bigger concern is that the players aren't demonstrating in this system yet, in any of the 20 games that Ruben Amorim has had, apart from maybe Liverpool away, that there is an entertainment and a performance level to this system. So, look, they're going to have to be patient. The club, the players are going to have to be patient. Ruben Amorim's going to have to be patient. Everyone's going to have to be patient. But I would like to have seen the performance levels getting higher. That's the one thing under Erik ten Hag. You can't detach result from performance. You can win sometimes not playing badly, but it'll catch you out quite a lot if you continue to play at sort of an average level. And this is a very average level that United are performing at week in, week out. And that's why Crystal Palace are beating them amongst other clubs. And that's why Tottenham beat them today. Because you're asking basically for players to take individual moments.
Let's look at the last 14 results. It's 14 points in that time in the Premier League. It's 12 defeats in their last 25. They haven't lost more games in their opening 25 games of a league season since 1973-74 when they were relegated. But these 14 that Ruben Amorim has taken charge of, the ones that he's responsible for, you talked about wanting to see improvement in performances under him. What have you seen that suggests that he's the right man to build Manchester United back?
The best thing about it so far has been actually his press conferences, and I think even today after the game, the way in which he communicates his vision and his idea and that he wants to succeed at Manchester United and he feels he'll get it right. I don't think there's anything on the pitch that I've seen so far, either in results or performances, that tell me that we're watching a really good team. We're not. It's a really poor team, this United team.
But even if it's a poor team, there are ways in which to make even a poor team look better. Are they there?
He has died in a ditch in respect of when he said very early on, I'm not going to change my idea. So now he can't. And that's, I suppose, an issue in some ways, because I do think there were probably, with those 11 players he had out on the pitch there, a better way of probably getting them into a system which would have meant they'd have felt more comfortable. But he can't change that now because of what he said previously. He's really sort of stuck his flag in the ground and sort of that's the way in which he's going to go down. But the performance levels are nowhere near good enough. and he'll know that. He had a very good team, by the way, at Sporting Lisbon. He had a fantastic team. So he knows what good looks like. He knows where he wants to take Manchester United to. The problem is at this moment in time, it's just not happening at all.
Jamie, have you seen anything on the pitch that suggests that Amorim can do this job of rebuilding Manchester United?
No, not necessarily. But the reason why I would say that is because the players aren't good enough, Kelly. It's a really poor Manchester United team. If you go back through the history of the great ones and you compare this, they are miles off it. They need 7, 8 top players to change. So we all thought that Ten Hag hasn't got a clue, he just doesn't know what he's doing, everyone else is better than him. And I'm sure this manager probably thought that, because he's got big egos, managers. He thought, I can come in there, I can change it. I know he didn't want to probably come in right now, because he thought, I need a bit of time, because the pain is only going to get worse for a while. But I do believe, and it's going to be hard because we're going to have to keep saying the same things, they need a lot of time. They need to get rid of a lot of players. They need to bring in better players, because that isn't the nucleus of a squad that's going to be competing. When you look at the likes of Arsenal and Manchester City right now and Liverpool, they are miles ahead. They are not good enough. So it becomes very difficult to make a really good-looking team out of that. And I think he wants to change the culture. I think, obviously, Marcus Rashford leaving players like that, they need to go. If they're not going to be the sort of guys that are going to train well, conduct themselves the right way, be good role models about the place, they need to go. And too often, I think people at the club have ran that place and not let the manager have that control. But I think he feels like the first one that's going to get that control.
He's been strong there, but what Jamie says about the players not being good enough, if you just take Tottenham's best players, Porro, Udogie, Van de Ven, Romero, midfield of Basuma, Sarr, Maddison, Solanke, Kulusevski, Son, Johnson, Tell. How many Manchester United players would get into that Tottenham team if everybody was fit?
None.
I think Bruno. I think you'd want to have Bruno
Ahmed
in there. Maybe Ahmad, but to be honest
he needs
with you,
time.
You've got Kulusevski or Ahmad, and I'll be honest with you, I think I'll be going probably Kulusevski.
Yeah.
So my point is, every single Tottenham player, probably barring one, if they were all available, is better than every single Manchester United player. And that's not being emotional, it's not ranting anymore. We've gone past that now. It's just really sad that that's where Manchester United are currently at. They haven't got the players.
But
that's
these players,
recruitment.
is that the level that you thought those players were at, the Manchester United squad players were at, when they were signed?
No. It's what happens to them when they get here. And we've seen players actually the other way, when they've left, actually start to thrive again. So there is something I talked about, Tottenham before, and that sort of cultural that platform. What's happening in the club at this moment in time? There's a lot of redundancies off the pitch. There is a lot of uncertainty. There is a lot of uncertainty on the pitch. They've had a manager be sacked this season already. It's not easy to perform in that environment. It's been the same for 10 years, and it's still not changing at this moment in time. Hopefully, in the next 2 or 3 years, Ruben Amorim is given the time to be able to build a successful team and squad. But every single Tottenham player that gets into their first 11 gets into Manchester United first, and probably apart from Bruno.
And the thing is, they've thrown fortunes at it. Fortunes. But if your recruitment is wrong, or your idea of a player, and you're bringing on 30-year-olds and signing them from absolute fortunes from 4 or 5 year contracts, it's not sustainable, and it's never going to work. So that's the other thing. So they have to change now. People like Jason Wilcox who's been bought in. Jason knows the game inside out. Can't think of his name. The guy from Man City, who's obviously a fantastic CEO, Barada. So there are people that they are trying, but this you can't. I looked at that team today, and I'm thinking, looking at the subs, I actually felt sorry for him. It was really difficult to get a shape of a midfield. You could talk about systems all day long. He didn't have the personnel, really, that he would have liked at his disposal to get the result that he wanted.
If you're going to play two midfield, you need legs.
Absolutely.
I think the way the game's gone now, everything's data-driven. So you talk about recruitment and, back in the days, eyes don't lie. You can see play. After 5 minutes, right, he's a player, that's what I want. But everything's data-driven now, and I think sometimes you've got to be very careful. But I agree with what Gary said about just not good enough, the players. We can talk about systems, but you talk like Bruno Fernandes today is probably the one, really. You think Ahmed was missing today, but the shift that he put in today, going out and just vacating a massive space in the middle of the pitch, got Casemiro, sort of back end of his career, it's difficult, and it's sort of like there's no structure. If that was a training session and it was 11v11, and you can blow the whistle at any stage, you'd blow the whistle, there'd be players all over the place. There was no structure, in possession or out of possession. It's
Casemiro becomes like a bit of he gets a lot of stick.
Yeah.
That in his defence, I played midfield. I felt sorry for him today in there, because he looks, of course, because he's covering distances that are impossible for Rodri to cover. Rodri would have found it hard in that midfield today on his own, and he's the number one, as we say. But it was impossible for him. And if you haven't got the personnel, and he's got injuries right now, it becomes extremely difficult. Is he the right man? Like, you could keep sacking managers left, right and centre because it has to, like Gary says, there's stuff off the field they have to change, they have to change the personnel, but that will take time. You can't just have one window when you bring in 6, 7 players and expect it all to gel. It is going to take time. But probably the finances, Gary, with financial fair play, are they in a position to go and buy right now?
I don't think so, unless they get rid of players. I don't think they've got that 150, 200 million anymore. I think that sort of Anthony Casemiro window where 150, 200 million was spent was a really bad one, because that was a panic one that wasn't in... I don't think that was in the business plan at the end. It was when they lost to Brentford,
and I think
my
Brighton. Understanding is that's part of the reason why there's this new round of layoffs coming up, is that it's all part of trying to balance those PSR books for Manchester United. So right. It may be that whole scale changing of the squad might be a little way, and there might yet be more pain for Manchester United, who find themselves in 15th place in the Premier League title. At the other end of the table, it was a 2-1 win for Liverpool at home to Wolves. They were 2-0 up. I know you were watching from the gantry, Gary, but this was tense at the end, probably for different reasons for you than it was for example, Jamie.
I actually thought it was a really good day for Liverpool, but I actually thought it was half a decent day for Arsenal as well, in thinking that, you know, Liverpool have got Villa coming up away, they've got City coming up away, and that Liverpool just got over the line against the Wolves team. I thought Wolves were fantastic in the second half. And then when they score this goal, you're thinking they're right back in it. But I think sometimes sometimes you get a game like that when you're going for a title as well at home, where people think you're going to turn up and win easily. You're 2-0 up. You think you're going to go and score 3 or 4. And it becomes difficult for you. So we've all had these types of matches. So that's why I think it was a good result for Liverpool. But I also think Arsenal will look at it and think, OK, it wasn't a 4-0 against Wolves. It was a 2-1. So it gives us a bit of hope.
And you talk about the upcoming fixtures. Obviously, within that, there's the Champions League 16 matches for both sides. And until they're concluded in midweek, we won't know exactly who their opponents are going to be. But you mentioned the next 2 opponents for Liverpool, Aston Villa and Manchester City.
Those 2 are big, Kelly. They're really big. Because, look, Villa aren't in the best of form at this moment in time, but it's a ground you can go to and get caught out. And City...
Same.
Absolutely, you can get caught out there. They've got the players that can turn up and score 2 or 3 against you. So for me, I think that if Liverpool could get 4 points out of those 2 games and move on, I think they'll be in a great position, because, you know, Arsenal are going to drop points as well towards the end of the season.
We're always looking at where to assess the title race. Are we looking there at a line under the end of February before it resets again? Because Liverpool have only got 1 Premier League game in March.
Yeah, and when I look at the games, obviously Arsenal found a way of winning yesterday, bringing on Marino, and he might be the answer as a centre-forward. Certainly don't think he is, but he'll get you goals because of his physicality up there. This is going to be edgy. You could see it with Liverpool today. He spoke after, just looked on the Sky Sports app there, and and the manager said that we were bad and we got worse. And I sort of understand what he was saying, because they were edgy. They've had a couple of bad results. They needed to get 3 points no matter how they did it. And I know how to lose a title, and Gary knows how to win a Premier League title. But that's the sort of pressure that you're going to come under. So it is going to be a case of who can handle the nerves and things like that. There's going to be so many twists and turns. I do still believe in this title race.
But Arsenal, if you look at those fixtures, if Liverpool can get through this week, Arsenal, I think, have got Nottingham Forest away and Manchester United away. It's coming up in the next 3. They're tough games for them. So I think Liverpool can get through this week.
We've just battered Man United, and there's a tough
No, but you're going.
It's a hard game.
It sounds crazy, but when United play against the big teams, they can cause shocks. They can do stupid things sometimes, and they can turn up and lift the game. They are capable of that. So I think if Liverpool can get through this week with 4 points, I think there's a good chance Arsenal may drop points in those 2 as well, and then they'll be back to 7 points. So that'll be sort of par coming out of this difficult period.
You'll be Sky Sports cannot vouch for any betting tips that are given on our live coverage.
I've seen you.
You've not seen my swing, Jack.
Right, listen, you've got 5 minutes till the bar closes. Jamie, Jermain and Gary.
Show us practice swing.
Thank you very much after a big day.
That's enough.
On Super Sunday, where Liverpool goes 7 points clear again at the top of the table, and Tottenham get a long-awaited victory against Manchester United.